Great to have you with us. Joining us now, Congressman Dr. Dave Brat, Republican, 7th District of Virginia. Those that say, oh, where's that? Well, that's in central Virginia, basically the Richmond area and suburbs there within. Dr. Dave Brat, member of the Freedom Caucus, with us now live. Dr. Brat, good to have you, man.
Hey, great to be on, John. Thanks.
So there's our vice president, right? You heard the montage in Kentucky Saturday. He's all fired up. He says, This replacement plan is the greatest thing since sliced bread. We're going to have competition. Costs are going to come down. But then you look at the bill, and I just had your colleague, Congressman Griffith, on a little bit earlier, and who said he is leaning towards voting yes. But here's my question. So he was saying we can't put the across state lines competition in the replacement bill because then it couldn't be voted on in reconciliation in the Senate, and they would need 60 votes, not 51, because of their arcane, stupid rules. And so we're going to have to do that separately. And then President Trump is saying, it's all going to get negotiated. We're going to get amendments. It's all good. But you don't seem too convinced of this whole thing.
No, well, he's right, and that's what we're being told, by the way. Senator Cruz came out over the weekend and some others, and it all hinges on this Byrd rule over in the Senate as to what we can pass through reconciliation with 51 votes. And so that's where the hang-up is. Trump and the administration and leadership are saying we're going to lower the price of health care and have competition. But in order to do that, there's only one way, and that's if you get rid of the insurance regulations. Otherwise, you're left with the same essential health care benefits. That's the buzzword now, the essential health care benefits that are set by the federal government, and they're very expensive. And so if you leave those in, then, okay, you can go shop across state lines, but you can only order Escalade SUVs, right, the high-end product. And that's what's bankrupting the country right now. So you've got to be able to let that young person buy a catastrophic care plan that suits their own life situation, and that's the major objection. Is just that we're creating another federal health care system. We're not returning enough of it to the states, and so in the Freedom Caucus, the major piece we need to see is that second bucket. The insurance regs has to go into this bill and over to the Senate. And experts, the leading expert in the country on this Byrd rule stuff has said because of the Supreme Court case, right, all you have to do to show that it fits in the reconciliation rules shows it has a budget impact for the United States. Well, surely changing the insurance regs for 1/5 of the economy will have a huge budget impact. So sometimes in D.C. we just lose track of common sense. And if we get some of those big moves made, then some of us can get over to yes. But as of right now, there's just not anywhere near enough free market logic embedded in this bill.
Okay, so you're going to wait for the amendments to make your final decision and see how it comes out. But unlike Congressman Griffith, Congressman Brat, what you're saying is if this came to the floor today, you'd vote no, unequivocally, right? Just
yeah,
no.
Yeah. And I don't think even amendments can do the trick because the insurance regulations are not a small piece, right? That is a huge chunk. And I'm not sure if they can allow that many amendments. If they did, right, if they said drop all the insurance regs in Obamacare and we're going to move it through the Senate and put it in the bill, that's another story. But so that's the big debate. We're not talking small little pieces here. And the fundamental logic is we're paying too much attention to health insurance coverage and not enough attention to lowering the price and premiums, right? And that's the error that Obamacare made. All it talked about was health insurance coverage, 18 million new people covered. Well, they don't have access to health care because the deductible is so high. The average American family can't use the insurance product they have, so they're not getting health care, and that's the problem we got to fix. We got to bring the price down so that the average family can afford these products again, and obviously, right, that goes back to free market logic instead of the federal government messing things up, which they have done. That's why we're in a death spiral because the federal government planned 1/5 of the economy. So the health insurance market is in a death spiral because of the federal government. So the American people have to go, oh, hey, that's right. Let's get the federal government out of here because everything they touch goes insolvent and bankrupt after a couple decades.
All right, so Congressman Dave Brat with us. So leadership is saying that don't worry about bending the cost curve down. Get Obamacare repealed, get something to replace it, and then we'll deal with that in subsequent legislation. Are you saying that you don't really trust that system, that you want to see it all in one? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, because, I mean, they're essentially saying, okay, let's do the coverage piece, right? The big health insurance coverage piece in bucket one, and then later on, maybe the secretary can do a large chunk of bucket two, and then we'll try to get 60 votes for bucket three. And I'm
Never
like,
gonna
no, that logic is backwards. That's getting the major federal government piece up front and the free market later. What we need to do is get the free market up front, and then you can get the Democrats on board for the big government piece and the big spending piece later if you need to. And I don't want that to happen, but we've got the ordering backwards here.
The real problem that Griffith was saying is he's saying you can't do what Dave is advocating is because you can't get to the 60 votes in the Senate no matter how you divvy up the pie. It isn't going to happen. So he says you have to get at this through reconciliation. Well, why not then put the pressure on Senate Majority Leader McConnell to just get rid of that stupid rule? I mean, it's a man-made rule. He could get rid of it tomorrow. Why not do that?
That's right. You can. These are rules that came in under Byrd, the Democrat senator, a few decades back, and there's a parliamentarian sitting in place right now that's a Democrat. It doesn't really matter, but Pence can go in that chair in the Senate and overrule the parliamentarian, and then we got our bill through. And the experts will tell you that. So the Senate is, they've got a bunch of moderates that don't want to move free market stuff through, and we need to push them on this because this is not a small matter. This is 1/5 of the economy, and these costs impact every single citizen's life and their family and their business. Small business can't hire young people right now because of the cost of health care, and we've got to get this thing right. And so Morgan is right under the status quo, right, if you listen to the Senate. But the Senate's a little, they're called the slow-moving body that sits back and contemplates all these things while they're having tea and saucers and all this stuff. They're very sophisticated. Mm-hmm. And right now it's time for some action, and so we got to put a little pressure on them.
Okay, so what do you want to have happen now? All right, they have a replacement bill. Do you want to see that just as it stands now with a few amendments? You said that's not good enough. Do you want to see that go down in the flames and then you start over? What's your approach?
I'd rather have them attach bucket 2 and part of bucket 3 to the bill.
Oh, they're not going to do that.
Push it through the Senate and let's have a yes vote and repeal it and replace it and have free markets and let people shop across state lines and see the price of their products for the first time. No one knows the price of any of these products, right? You just go in the doctor's office and you're at their mercy. And that's not the way to shop for low-cost products. And I heard Rush Limbaugh, who's, his messaging is just so good. I taught free market stuff for 20 years, and sometimes you forget the basics. And he said, how do you know what is a good product? How do you know what's successful? Well, you look at a big firm who's very successful, right, who's made a great product at a low price, great quality, they got great service, they got a great brand name. Where do you see that in healthcare?
Nowhere.
Right? Where do you see that? You don't, because it's a monopoly. You don't see any firms competing against each other saying, hey, come try our, treatment over here. It's way better than their treatment, right? And here's the price. Our price is this. You never see that in the healthcare market, and that's a hint that we're nowhere near a free market system, and we got to get that in place.
Okay, but what leadership is saying is they're not going to do that. I mean, what you just advocated, they're not going to do. So that's going to leave you with either you're going to have to go with their promise because, Congressman, this is really what they're saying. Go with our repeal and replacement, get this done, and then we promise Secretary Dr. Price, well, he will get rid of these regulations in phase 2, and then phase 3, we're going to get a brand new bill. We're going to get rid of the insurance regulations. We're going to open up against state lines. We're going to bend the cost curve down. Trust us. That's basically their message here. Trust us.
Yeah, well, the political logic there is that there's some hard stuff moving down the pike that we're going to get to later. And that's the part. It's not about trust. It's just a political calculation. I'm like, no way, right? If you can't get that stuff through with 51 votes, how are you going to get through with 60 votes? So it's just a matter of, I differ. And plus, you got the Senate now with 5 folks saying we're not going to pass it on the Republican side, so it's done. It doesn't matter, right? Even if you did pass it in the House, which you won't, there's 50 people in the House that won't vote for it, at least. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them are hiding under their desks and won't say. But if people vote yes for this thing and then the Senate votes no, Tom Cotton just said over the Sunday, right? We could lose a huge chunk of the House who vote yes for this thing, go against the base. The base wants a full repeal of this thing. And if you don't get rid of those insurance regs, you do not have anywhere near a full repeal of Obamacare.
So what you're saying is the House could vote in favor of it, the Senate could vote no, and then what happens?
It's done. It's down. And it's guaranteed, right? I mean, you got 5 senators on the Republican side, and you got about another 10 moderates and folks, other folks, Republicans. They're iffy. So there's no way it can pass the Senate, and I don't think it can pass the House right now. I don't even think it's close.
All right,
and so we're going to have some big changes, and the Trump administration is open to that, right? I mean, we're going bowling at the White House tomorrow night. And we're going to talk over some of these negotiations, and Trump is a great negotiator. And so he'll want to see, hey, I promised shopping across state lines. Why isn't that in there? I promised we're going to reduce prices for the average person. You know, I want to see how does that happen. And so we're going to have, that debate and try to get some of that pushed into this bill. We want Trump to be a success, right? If you just put bucket 1 in, we're going to have death spirals in 2 years again. And we all want Trump to succeed, so we're holding tough for him so that he ends up having a successful presidency.
All right, so you basically don't think this bill can get fixed with amendments. So what are you looking for, just a total overhaul?
Yeah, well, the big controversial pieces are the insurance regs, biggest piece by far, and then there's the new entitlement piece that puts the refundable tax credits in there. That's very costly, goes against most Republican law. The system. There's Medicaid expansion, and there's just a bunch of other small pieces that they'll have to get. They've been too much negotiated with just politics in mind, right? Trying to get everybody on board, but that's what happened under Obamacare.
Right.
We got the doctors and the insurance companies and all the special interests saying, okay, we can live with this. Well, they could live with it. Right, but now they're the death spiral, and they're going out of business in those sectors at least. Right, they're still making money off on the employer provided.
Right,
but the part they arranged for the American people is bankrupt, and we don't want to do that again.
All right, so you're going to the White House tomorrow night to bowl?
Yeah.
Do you bowl, Dave?
Night, I think.
Do you bowl? When was the last time you bowled?
2 brothers growing up. My dad took us every Tuesday.
Okay, so
we'll see if I can remember anything.
You can throw a ball. I just went with my family last night. I got beat. Everybody beat me.
Good for you. That's great.
But I do have a ball, so you got to go home, though, and you got to get your ball, right? I mean, you can't go in there and get one off the rack.
I need a red, white, and blue one. That's right.
I know. Besides, you're an athlete. I mean, you're going to be in there.
Patriotic bowling ball.
You're going to be in. I mean, you work out, right? You're an athlete. A lot of these guys in there.
I try.
I mean, they're not. They're not going to be able to bowl.
I think I'm going to stick with a pizza and good conversation.
All right. So look. So you're going to that White House, and you guys are not going to mince words, right? So you're going to tell the president what's wrong and what has to get in this thing in order to make it palatable. Based on what you just said, even if you do that, it's not going to pass the U.S. Senate anyway. That's what we were saying earlier.
Right.
This is frustrating.
Yeah. Well, and we want what Trump wants in it. And so we're going to tell them, hey, what you want, the shopping across state lines, and the key pieces you want where you talk about competition and bringing the price of health care. He called me 2 days ago, too, and I said the same thing, right?
He did?
Yeah, and he's listening. He's willing to negotiate. He's not saying, my way or the highway kind of stuff. And so we're going to get this thing right for him, and he knows we have his back. All of us in the Freedom Caucus ran and supported him.
Mm-hmm.
And put in, the shoe leather and all that, knocking doors, handing out literature and all that. He knows that. And so that we're going to get this thing straight, and most importantly for the American people, right? I mean, the people out there, small business has been getting crushed,
mm-hmm.
and it's not a talking point, right? Mm-hmm. I always tell the news people, I say, have you ever interviewed a small business person? And they never have. I mean, it's just shocking, right? 80% of America's small business. I said, just go interview the first 10 small businesses in the phone book
mm-hmm.
and ask them how life's going. And they'll tell you. You don't listen to politicians. Go ask the American people, and they'll tell you the truth. And they never do because they don't want to hear that.
Right. They don't want the truth.
Right.
They just want their own narrative. All right. So basically, you're going to have your big meeting tomorrow night at the White House. You get the bowl, and you're going to be candid with President Trump, you guys, and tell him what needs to get in this thing in order for it to go forward, which is you got to get rid of the insurance regulation entitlements to open up the competition, because the key factor to this thing is you've got to bend the dollar amount down, right?
Yep.
It's got to go down.
Yep.
Without
that is the guts of it right there. You just put your finger. And I asked Paul Ryan when we went to Philadelphia a few months ago, I said, when we come out of Philadelphia, will leadership go externally and say we're going to push the cost curve down? And he said, sure, Dave, that's what we're doing. That's the whole premise here, right? But we can't do that yet with just bucket one in place. And that's the problem, right? So that's my objection. It's not personal. It's not against leadership or this kind of silly stuff. It's we're not bending the cost curve down, and that's my objection. And so if they can solve that, I'm a yes vote, right? If you can bend that cost curve down, I'm a yes. And it's that simple. You got me on the record right there.
There it is. And we're going to end on that. We want to thank Congressman Dave Brat for being with us. If you want more information, it's real easy to do because he's going to the White House tomorrow. You can go to davebrat.com. That's davebrat.com. Congressman, always good to have you, man. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, John. Thank you very much.
Dave Brat.
God bless.
.com. I'll be right back.